The Metro series, developed by 4A Games and based on the novels by Russian author Dmitry Glukhovsky, might not have the mainstream and widespread appeal as some other shooter franchises out there, but as fans of the series would tell you, there's nothing else quite like it. With Metro Exodus, the pseudo-horror post-apocalyptic franchise returning, going bigger and hopefully better than before. With its launch getting closer and closer, excitement surrounding the game is continuing to mount. In this feature, we're going to talk about 15 pieces of info about Metro Exodus that are sure to get you excited for Artyom's harrowing journey across post-nuclear Russia. The setup. Following on from the redemption ending of Metro Last Light, Exodus picks up a year later in 2036 and follows Artyom and Anna, who are now married, and a group of Spartan Rangers flee from Moscow to head east in order to find a peaceful home for themselves. They journey across Russia aboard the train known as Aurora. The game story will span an entire year and as a result show all 4 seasons, beginning with winter. Level design. Metro games have always been defined by tight, claustrophobic, and linear levels, but Exodus is going to open things up. A lot. While progression will still be linear in that once you're done with a level you cannot go back to it, levels will now take place in large, open-ended sandbox environments. Players will be free to explore and, according to the developers, even just the critical paths in each of these levels can take up to multiple hours of your time. Linear levels. Though Metro Exodus will have larger and more open levels, the game is not going to be open world. What's more, if you're worried that the game will be foregoing the atmospheric and claustrophobic design of previous games, well, don't be. 4A Games have confirmed that, though the larger levels are open-ended, there will be missions limited to corridor-style levels as well, and that the game will strive to strike a balance between the two different styles. Side activities. One of the reasons that 4A Games were adamant on not making Exodus an open-world game was so that they wouldn't lose the tight narrative focus for the series that it's known for. As such, the open-ended maps in Exodus aren't going to have side quests in the traditional sense. There will still be optional activities, while exploration will obviously have its benefits, but all of that will be completely up to the player, and the game won't really direct you in any way, which means no markers either. The train. The Aurora, the train that Artyom and his companions use to travel across Russia throughout the course of the game, will serve as a hub environment for players between missions. Though the train will begin the game as only an engine, throughout the course of the game players will add more carriages to it. Characters that players meet in the game can be recruited to join their party aboard the train, and players can witness or engage in conversations with these characters by returning to said train, similar to settlements in previous Metro games. Customization. Weapon customization is going to be a much more emphasized gameplay mechanic than it has been in previous Metro games. Unlike its predecessors, in Exodus, players can customize weapons on the fly, using parts or resources that you scavenge from the environments. You can engage in extensive customization and modification of your guns to suit any particular need you might have. Dynamic weather. The large, open environments of Metro Exodus will have an element of dynamism to them. This will happen mostly through different weathers, such as sandstorms, which will alter things such as visibility. Additionally, the game also has a day and night cycle, which will also have an impact on how players approach their objectives. Seasons. Since Exodus's story spans an entire year, players will get to witness 4 different seasons as well, and as the seasons change from winter to spring to summer to autumn, the environments will be altered as well. Seasons will also have an impact on what sorts of enemies players encounter in the game, which brings us to our next point. Enemies. While mutated animals and humans will of course be among the enemy types that players will cross paths with, the human enemies will also have some variation to them and will belong to different factions, which will be introduced across different seasons in the story. During the winter, players will meet the Hansa faction, the dominant faction on the surface. The Fanatics and the Bandits are 2 more factions that will be introduced in spring. Player choices. Player choice has always been a part of the Metro games, and that won't be changing in Exodus. Throughout the story, at several moments, players will be given choices, which will shape the way the story unfurls. As per the developers, these choices will be nuanced and subtle, and won't be telegraphed in a way that players can see them coming. Multiple endings. Of course, choices mean multiple endings, which is something else that Metro fans will be familiar with. The choices that players make throughout the game's story will shape its ultimate outcome. According to the developers, there won't be any wrong ending, and the conclusion that players will get will fit the way that they have been playing the entire game. Length. As linear, story-driven shooters, Metro 2033 and Last Light were both games that you could roughly finish in 10 hours. Exodus is apparently going to be much longer than that. Though the developers haven't given any specific figures on what the playtime will be, they have said that owing to the larger levels and increased focus on exploration, the game will end up being longer than its predecessors. It's apparently also got a lot of things to say from a narrative standpoint. Its script is supposedly longer than both Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light put together. Photo mode. Photo modes have become increasingly common and popular in games these days, and players can expect to see something similar in Exodus as well. Developer 4A Games have announced that there will be a photo mode in Metro Exodus at launch, which is a great thing because the game looks like it's going to be a visual beast. Aurora Edition. For the biggest fans of the Metro series, publishers Deep Silver are also going to put out a collector's edition. The Aurora Limited Edition will include, of course, a copy of the game itself, as well as an expansion pass, an art book, and a steelbook case. The entire package will cost $90. PS4 Pro and Xbox One X enhancements. Metro games have always sported top-notch visuals at launch, and Exodus is looking like it's going to continue that tradition. In fact, developers 4A Games have stated that they're looking to take full advantage of the more powerful hardware of the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. On the One X, Exodus will have a native 4K resolution, and while the developers haven't said anything specific about the PS4 Pro version, we can expect it to at least hit dynamic 4K as well. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.